What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell just as sweet. Right. Bill knew what he was talking about. This is Carl Irwin, the Common Magician. This is a bit of a response to a little bit of a discussion that we've had going on here with a series I've been doing with the magic that I do. Right, these are tricks that I do, and one of them was a variation of any card at any number. It's not the only one I do, but it's the one I go to. It's the one I do the most. It's very accessible to me. It's surefire, and I can get away with it. And it meets all of the requirements I'm after, right? The feeling of free choices, open choices, a free choice on a card by value and suit, just by looking at the cards rather than by picking one blindly, right? And then also conceptually the free choice of a number, and that's where the sticking point is at right there, that we'll talk about. But I want to go through a few things here. I don't want to overly try to create an apologetic for what I'm doing. My issue is not that I am trying to convince anybody that what I'm doing is an any card at any number. My point is that the distinction of an any card at any number versus something else that is exactly the same thing is silly, right? And this is not something that only exists in magic. There's a lot of things that magicians can argue about and yell at each other about that are just absolutely ridiculous, right? Every single occupation has occupational hazards like that, intellectual ones. I'm a musician. That's what I do for a living. That's my real work, is I'm a teacher, music teacher, and a performer and a composer. I write music as well. And I can tell you that musicians argue over the dumbest stuff too, right? One of them being an exact correlation to this is you have one group of people talking about an augmented sixth chord versus another group talking about a tritone substitution. And they will fight about whether it is one or the other. And the reality is that they are exactly the same thing in form and function. There's no difference at all. And the argument is just a cultural perspective completely. That's all it is. It's nothing else other than that. And there's other things like that, right? Any occupation, any kind of subject matter, you'll find that. And here we have one that I'm pointing out today. So the assertion is that by having a spectator cut the cards, at least as they see it, because I think we have to address that first, is that the spectator perceives that this is what has happened, that they've cut the cards. They've done it themselves, hands off from the performer, which is why I need to do it this way, right? Because that's what I'm after. My goal is to be hands off at the moment when it matters, that when they do what they're going to do, I'm not touching the deck. And that this is understood to be a selection of a number. This is a selection of a location by number, a place in the deck. And the way that is enforced is that they take the pack that they've cut off as they understand it, and then they count the number of cards they selected, and then they find the card there, right? The assertion additionally is that is not useful. Why not just cut the cards and that's it? It's not an ACAAN. It's not an any card at any number. It's a spectator cuts to their card. That's what it is, right? Here's and it's not just that. It's the boldness and kind of rudeness at which it was stated that I really want to address, because I don't think you really have a place to come from being like that. I really don't. And let me just show you why here. Think of a card. Go ahead, name any card. Name any card. There's 52 possibilities. Name any card. Spectator says 5 of hearts. Right? That's a choice. They have 52 possible choices, and they name one. That's a free choice, okay, out of 52. As opposed to pick any card. You have one of 52 choices. Pick any card. Go ahead and take one. It's the same range of choices. It's the same free opportunity. Completely free opportunity, because they could pick this one, they could pick that one, they could, and I know you know this. I have to demonstrate it though to get where I'm going. They could pick this one, this one, this one, right? They could pick anything. You know, they pick this one right here. This is the one that they want. Oh, 5 of hearts. Okay. Both of those things are the same thing to the 99th percentile, right? The difference between the two is the matter of control. And this is building up to my point here with the number. The spectator has control over the identity in the first scenario. Okay, whereas in the second one, they don't have control over it. The deck has control over the identity, but it doesn't change the fact that the spectator has the exact same control as they had before over choice, because there's 52 separate options and the cards can't magically change places on them. They can make a blind choice, but it is a specific choice for that one, not knowing what it is. Okay, it's the same probability as the first one. When it comes to this two-step verification that any card at any number has. That's what any card at any number is, a two-step verification. It's all the same probability, 1 in 52, but it's a two-step verification to verify it. Okay, that's the distinction. Now, this matters obviously to the magician and to the spectator, because there's something about thinking of something freely and having that revealed, as opposed to choosing something from a physical spread. And the reason is because it is known that the magician can control cards, especially when the spectator does not particularly know the identity of the card yet. One pasteboard can be moved somewhere else, right, by the spectator, or by the magician. Whereas when a spectator freely names a card, the magician, as far as they know, can't influence that in any way. That is entirely their decision, and they have absolute control over what they say. That's why it matters, right? So in any card at any number versus kind of the Burglas effect, the Holy Grail kind of version of this, is that, in one, a spectator can pick a card any way as long as they think it's free. It doesn't matter how it's done. Whereas with the other version, the Holy Grail kind of variation, the spectator can freely name or think of a card and call it out, rather than have the potential for control, or outside control. You know this already. I'm not saying anything you don't know. When we look at the idea of naming a number versus cutting the deck, it is the same equation. It's identically the same equation. It's not like it. It is the same thing. Okay? In one respect, you can say name a number, where they would name a number out of 1 through 52, and they have absolute control over the number that they name without any potential for influence as far as they know. Okay? Whereas, they could say 19, right? Something like that. Whereas they could cut the deck. The magician could say, cut some cards, right? Cut any number of cards. They could say whatever you want, cut the deck. And the spectator has a choice. They can cut deep, they can cut shallow, they can cut wherever they want. And I think it's an important distinction, right? They cut the deck. And then it's not merely that they cut the deck, they actually cut a number. This is a number choice. This is not a stretch. It is a number choice. This is a number selection every time, right? Every time, right? This is a number selection for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 cards, right? That's what it is. It's a number selection. Oh, the 5 of hearts. Okay. It doesn't matter, right, which way this is, unless your concern is with the concept of absolute freedom, thereby making it the Bergloss effect kind of trick. Okay, so when you have a spectator cut, it's ACAAN. It's a number choice. Always. It always is. If I'm in a card game, right, and the deck has been shuffled, deck's shuffled, all the cards are shuffled, they're mixed up. A very important procedure always is to pass the deck over to the right of the dealer, and the person to that side will cut the deck. They can cut here. They can cut here. They can cut here. They could cut here. They can pass. They have a choice, and they have a freedom as to a number of cards that they cut, right? This is cutting the deck. This is also cutting the deck. But those are not the same. They're not the same. One is not as good as the other. They are completely different. This is cutting the deck, right? This is cutting the deck. They're not the same. They're both called cutting the deck, but they're not the same. There's a number selection going on, okay? Now, the difference here is just as when we're talking about pick a card versus think a card, is that the spectator has a limited understanding as to what they're choosing. They know they're picking a general quantity, but they don't know the number exactly, right? But they have control. They don't have to go here. They can go down here. They can go here. This is why magicians often will use, for various reasons and various techniques, they'll say, could you please cut the cards approximately half? And you throw that little thing in there, approximately half. Sometimes it's because you're doing a particular kind of force that is actually in question here, and you're trying to keep the proportions even visually, just to make the illusion work. Other times it's because you're trying to get them into a crimp or a bridge or something like that, right? There's different reasons why a magician will call out that little tag there, but that's a method, right? The assumption there, if it's passed off the right way, is that the spectator had total freedom to cut the cards anywhere they want. That's how they understand cutting the deck. That's the whole point behind cutting a deck in a card game, is that freedom to cut wherever they want to and make a particular selection of an amount of cards and move them to a different place. So you're splitting hairs here by saying that cutting to the spectator selection and any card at any number are absolutely different. You shouldn't call it that. It is something different. That's ridiculous. It's silly. It's the same thing. It really is the same thing. I mean, it's entirely the same thing, especially if your distinction is that just an any card at any number could really function off of pick a card, return it to the deck, shuffle the cards, take off any number of cards and count them. Right? And then there it is. That is any card at any number. They had a free selection of a card. They had a free selection of a number. Both times, they did not know the specifics of their choice. The deck had some control over that, right? There was a little bit of a lag in information that the deck accounts for, as opposed to think of a card, 5 of hearts, name any number, 19. There it is, right? You just have two kinds of different versions with varying types of control, or you mix match these things, right? Think of a card, pick a number, roll some dice, whatever, right? There's something where they get to choose, or there's a randomization to the second part. You don't have to be as fair on the first as you do in the second. You can mix and match these things to make your method work. So then it gets to the last part here. Why count if they're cutting, right? If fine, we're just going to say that they're the same thing. I don't agree, but we will, okay? Why bother having them take it and count? It's theater, man. That's why. It's just theatrics. It's pure theatrics. That's all, right? We're making a statement. We are conflating things. That is a method in magic, right? Conflation. To take two things that are not exactly the same thing, but to call them the same thing and line them up better. We are recapping, right? We are using confabulation, right, to recreate a nuanced understanding of what has happened. Notice that I don't outright state in my performance that they named a number. I don't lie. I don't, that's bad. That's bad conflation. There is a lot of magic philosophy out there that says that you can recap in such a way that you can really convince a spectator that something happened that didn't happen. I don't think that's quite right. I think you're really running a big risk. Like, for example, if someone did not shuffle the cards and then later on you say, and you shuffled the cards, that ain't going to fly. Okay. However, you could have a spectator cut a deck a few times. And in the recap later on, you can say, and you even mixed the cards. That you can get away with. That's good recap. That's good conflation, particularly because what you're really doing is you're not necessarily recalibrating that particular spectator's memory so much as you are you're trying to conflate two different things that happened in the memory of the people that were watching, the people that were not directly involved. Right? They don't even remember things that happened because they weren't the ones doing it. They're a little bit more separated from it. So when you say you even mix the cards, oh yeah, he did mix the cards. Yeah, it's the cards are, that's what recap does. It's not an outright lie, and I'm not doing that. I'm not making a lie. I am saying what it is. You freely chose a card. You thought of one, right? And you freely chose a number of cards. They're right here. Pick them up. Any card at any number. That's what it is. It's this distinction of spectator cuts to the card versus any card at any number. It's just kind of silly. This will really bake you, right? What if I told you that ambitious card is actually card to impossible location, right? It's just this verbiage we come up with, right? But ambitious card is really, it's really just card to impossible location. It doesn't belong on the top of the deck. How could it be there? I just saw it go down there. It's impossible. It's an impossible location. Now, it's not card to wallet, right? But it is the same effect. I'm watching what you're doing, and that doesn't belong there. It is impossible that it went from here to there. It's really card to impossible location. We call it the ambitious card because that is that's the kind of shtick that we apply to it. That's the plot, right? That it rises to the top, the ambitious card or whatever. But it's much more freeing to think this way, I think, right? Don't pigeonhole these terms so much, because when you stop doing that, you realize that a particular effect that you're going after can really borrow methods that you use for other effects or other plots, I guess we would say, right? So these various other plots that you use in magic, you can really steal methodology that you use for that plot and apply it to a very different plot, even though you couldn't really do the two tricks back to back because you would see the similarity. But from a plot standpoint, they're different, right? Even though they're the same. So, like I said, I know what you're saying, right? It's spectator cuts the card versus, as we know, any card at any number where someone picks a card, someone picks a number, and then it's found at that. What I'm saying is you shouldn't argue so hard about it because it's silly. It's just foolish. It's not. They're the same. They're the same thing. This distinction we make is kind of a goofy subculture magician-y kind of language thing. This is not a magic convention, right? What I'm showing you again in this is the tricks that I do. The tricks that I do with people. They don't know any card to any number. They don't know spectator cuts to the card. They don't know ambitious card. They don't know triumph. They don't know these terms. They just know what they see. They know the effect. They know what happens, right? So anyway, yeah, I still stand by any card, any number. And yeah, you can use a spectator cuts to card in an any card at any number designation. Now, I will also point out, and this is a bit of a fallacy. I'm not proving anything by saying, like, one thing you could say is I do 10 different ACAANs and none of them are like that. I don't care how many you do, right? I don't know how many I do. I can do 1,000,000 because there's 1,000,000 ways to get there, right? You can jazz your way into an any card at any number on the spot at any moment. It doesn't really matter how many you do. The other thing is I don't necessarily think it matters to point to other great magicians necessarily that fit your position, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay. There are a lot of ACAAN presentations that are marketed as such by some pretty big names that use this exact principle that I'm talking about. But what they do is, rather than use the cut in the revelation part of it, they use the cut for the number choice and an automatic placement method, right? So it would be name any card, think of any card, right? Dan Harlan has a great one. I'm not going to tip off exactly what's going on there, but he's got a great one where his goal was to do any card, any number that he does not know what the card is, and he doesn't know what the number is at the point of reveal, and the audience knows that he doesn't know, right? That's what he was after. Those were kind of his parameters. I don't need that personally. I don't care if they call it out. My feeling is you can call out the card like you would in the Bergloss effect kind of variation. You can show me how many cards you cut off, right? My point is that these were free and I didn't do it. You did it. You called the card freely. I didn't have you pick it. I didn't control or force anything on you. You chose it freely, and you're the one that cut the cards, and I haven't touched them. That's what I'm after. That's my goal, right? The counting again is theater, but this is what I want. Okay? I want you to have any card. I want you to have any number of cards that you choose, and I want the card to end up there. Harlan's is that he wants someone to think of any card and he doesn't want to know what it is. He wants someone to have a number, but he doesn't want to know what it is. But the way that he has the number selected is exactly what I'm doing here. It's just in a different place. And there's a whole bunch of ACAANs that work this way. So it's think of a card, take it out, whatever. Could you go ahead and take off any number of cards, right? And go ahead and count them. They count them out, and then they get their number. Go ahead and put them back, right? And then it's this stuff, and then it's I won't touch the cards, and there it is. Okay, that's that presentation. Danny Day Ortiz does a bunch of ACAANs where you're talking about card selection, or rather, I'm sorry, number type selection based on this procedure. Take any number of cards. That's a cut. That's what it is. Take any number. You're not naming the number that you have. You're taking a number that you have control over. You can take few, you can take many, just take a number. And then that defines what the number is, right? Again, the difference is in the placement. Is this happening at the beginning as the procedure of the choice, or is it happening at the hands-off moment, such as what I'm doing here, at the moment of the revelation, any number of cards taken off? Yeah, that's it. I don't know what you're so wigged out about. It's it's the same. It's the same thing. There's a whole classification of these kinds of tricks that often get differentiated, but really they're the same thing. So you have ACAAN, Bergloss effect, spectator cuts to card, which would be like the card trick that can't be explained, or pneumatocosis, right? Even spelling tricks, right? What's the name of your pet? Fluffy. Bam, there it is. It's all the same. This is any card at any number, where the selection of the number is just a selection of a packet of cards by some choice, either physically, verbally, or linguistically. What's this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It's a cut. I chose a number and I cut them to the bottom. It's cut. It's the same thing as that. I just had a particular specific number placed on it rather than a general. Okay, that's what it is. So anyway, yeah, crisscross force is just a dynamite move, and it can be used in a lot of ways like this, including in an ACAAN kind of presentation, right? It's another reason why you would want to count is that even though you can do the crisscross force quite directly and people don't see it, they don't see it. I mean, magicians obviously know it, but real spectators, the people you really do perform for, they don't see it even if you do it bare bones. But the process of having them do this theater of counting the number of cards that they did face up, it adds another layer of separation from that move that is very beneficial. You are free and clear. There ain't no way they're coming back to what happened there once they go through this process. That's another reason why this is useful in the ACAAN variation of that technique. Okay, so there's reasons behind this. It's not some being clever. That's not what's going on. I'm not trying to be clever, right? It's a legitimate tactic that it works extremely well. I do this, and I've had people say it's the best card trick they've ever seen. Yeah, because it is. It's really hands off, and they get it. They walk away feeling I had a free selection of a card. I had a free selection of the number of cards there, and the card was at that number. They don't think of it in the way that I cut to it, but it doesn't matter if they do, because it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter how they perceive it, and I'm not that worried about it. I'm worried about the theater. I'm worried about the tension that is made in the presentation. Spectator cuts to card is a pretty quick thing. You name a card, 4 of diamonds or whatever, and I'm gonna shuffle the cards. It doesn't matter if I know where it, and then you do this and then it's there. That's a pretty quick thing. I'd rather do what I'm doing than do that. And I don't care if you call it Bob's your uncle. I don't care what it's called. It doesn't matter. They're the same. They're the same thing. That's my point. To argue adamantly that they are different it's not coherent, because they're not. They're the same thing. So anyway, hit me with your best shot. Good luck with that. Happy magic.